Welcome to today's session. This is session 7 and 8, and what we're going to talk about is production planning and control. And the name of the subject is fashion material and production management for merchandisers. Now, there's another interesting term, production standards. Now, like I said, standard allowed hours or standard allowed minutes. So the production standard is SAM or SA, which is like, this is the rate stated in SAM or SAH that reflects the time required for a normal operator to complete one operation using a specific method. The production standard is, how much time would you take to, attach a pocket to a shirt? Like 30 seconds. That is the production standard. How much time would it take to attach one button to a shirt? Like 7 seconds. So the production standard is 7 seconds per button. That is a production standard. And every industry has its production standards. For a men's shirt, for a printed t-shirt, for a skirt, for a blouse, for a dress. We have the production standards in place for everything, for fusing, for stitching, for buttoning, for doing embroideries, and so on and so forth. Now, the production standard is also an indicator of how many times the operation can be done, can be completed in an hour. So either you say that this production can be, the production of one unit can be done in, let's say, 1 minute, or you say that in 1 hour it can be done 60 times. So either you say how much time will it take, or you say that in 1 hour these many times can be done. So either ways, the production standard can be indicated, and total of production standard of each operation is equal to time required to produce a specific style. Like I said, a shirt can be made in, let's say, 10 steps. Then the production standard for each of the steps, when summation of that is done, that will tell us the time required to produce a specific style. And the example that I gave was that a shirt can be made in 10 minutes when for each of the operations you record the amount of time taken for each operation and you add all of them. And then you get, let's say, 10 minutes. So then you say that the time required to produce a style is 10 minutes. Now, what are the objectives of this production standard? If you don't have production standards, how will you know whether you are underperforming or performing normal, or you're doing better than normal? So that's why you have the production standard. Now, you record the time for completion of each operation, and then you determine the required capacity for an order or a style. So if you can see, if you can calculate, record how much time is required for each of the operation, then we can determine the required capacity. How many machines will be required? Now, if a shirt requires lock stitch as well as overlock, then you will have to calculate the how many machines will be required, how many lock stitch machines will be required, and how many overlock machines will be required. So when you're saying required capacity for a particular shirt, then you will have to state in terms of how many machines of which type will be required to complete that much quantity of an order in a given amount of time. And the production standard, one of the objectives is that if you know the production standard, you will be able to tell what should be the start date, because the completion dates are already there. You have already negotiated the delivery date. Or if you know that, these are the different lines, they will be free on this date. So based on the start date, I can give you a completion date. Either ways. So when you have the production standards in place, only then you will be able to comment on the start date and the delivery date or the completion date. And if you know the production standards, then you can plan the daily volume that should be completed. So for a production manager, how do you give daily targets to the production supervisor? So you know the shirt, you know how many machines are there, and you know the standard allowed minutes, you know the production standard. So accordingly, you will give the target to the supervisor. If the supervisor says, no sir, the quantity, the target that you're giving is very high, what does the production manager say? Simply say, how? Please get all the operations done in front of you, if there are 10 operations. See the number of seconds taken for each operation. And then see whether the target that I've given to you is correct or not. Simple. If a particular line is giving you 100 pieces, how do you know whether that 100 pieces is good, bad, ugly, or very good? That is only possible if you know the production standards. Another objective that you can fulfill by knowing the production standard is that you can determine the backup inventory needed to support the workflow. Meaning to say that if you know that on a daily basis I can do 500 pieces of shirt on a particular line, then you also need a buffer. You need backup inventory to support the workflow. Now, what we mean over here is that if every day we are making 500 pieces, then for tomorrow and day after tomorrow, you have to keep all the cut fabric and the accessories with you so that tomorrow's production and day after tomorrow's production does not get hampered. So you can determine the backup inventory. Some other objective which can be fulfilled by way of production standard is that we can determine how many operators and machines should be performing each operation. So if pockets are being attached, you know that the operator who is attaching the machine, attaching the pocket with a particular machine, how many operations he or she should be doing in a day or maybe on an hourly basis. So you should know that. Otherwise, anyone can take you for a ride. You can also schedule specialized equipment. Now, it is known that when you make a shirt, then the overlock machine is used for just a couple of operations. Majority of the operations are done using the lock stitch machine. And overlock machines are very less in any factory. And they're less because they're used, the requirement is very less. Now the point is that these are special equipments, and if at all overlock machines are required for your style, then you will have to book that machine for your style. So you have to schedule the specialized equipment. So you're going to book that, I have this style and I need at least 2 hours for my style. So the booking is done by various, all the different lines that are there, different styles are being made. So for any particular style, if an overlock is required, then they are going to schedule the overlock machine for their style. And of course, you have to balance the workflow between departments. So let's say shirts are being stitched in the production department, and then it goes to the buttoning department where the button will be attached and the buttonhole will be made. Now you know the production standard for the stitching department. You also know the production standard for the buttoning department. So, and then you also know it for the washing department. So once the production is started, you know that daily how many pieces will be produced, and that many pieces also have to be buttoned, and that many pieces also have to be washed. If you don't have that balanced capacity, if the production is, let's say, 500 pieces and the buttoning can be done only for 400 pieces per hour, what's going to happen is that at the end of every 1 hour, you will have 100 extra pieces in the buttoning department. And if the washing can be done, let's say, only 300 pieces per hour, then there will be 100 pieces lying, getting piled up every hour in the washing department. So at the end of the day, there will be 800 pieces lying idle in the washing department and 800 pieces lying idle in the buttoning department. So that cannot happen. That should not happen. And that will happen because the balance in the workflow has not been maintained between the departments. So when you know the production standards, you'll know how to balance it. It's simple arithmetic. And you can also monitor production delays, meaning to say that just in case there are delays, you will know that why those delays are happening and how can those delays be avoided by increasing the number of machines or maybe using more skilled operators in those particular operations so that those delays don't happen. And you can assess the performance of individual operators. You know what is the normal speed. In one day, how many pockets should be attached. In one day, how many sleeves should be made. You know that. So you look at what an individual operator has done in 1 hour, and you know the standard. So you can assess the performance of the operator. The operator is very slow, slow, normal, fast, very fast. And accordingly, they can be, placed in different operations, in different styles. Now we come to a very important aspect, which is human resource management. Now we discussed at the outset that machines can be bought by anyone, but humans make the difference. Because of which India, Bangladesh, China, Vietnam, they are at particular ranking. That is because of humans, not because of the machines. Everyone has pretty much the same machines. And yet, we are at 6th position, Bangladesh is on the 2nd position, and so on and so forth. Human resource management is critical and crucial. It's critical, cannot be avoided, can lead to disasters, and it is crucial, it is important. You cannot avoid it. Now, people, unlike machines, are valuable to firm. Machine capabilities can expand with better training, motivation, experience, and reinforcement. So, if a person has been trained better, is motivated, has gained experience, and reinforcement in terms of if you incentivize it, or reinforcement in terms of you give them better machines, so the machine capabilities can be increased using the same. Further, job descriptions must be accurate and complete so that the positions are not misinterpreted. A classic example is if you take a security guard, don't ask them to start also attending the phone calls as a receptionist and also do the photocopies and things like that. So that's a very rudimentary example. But if you are taking a person for stitching, they want to only stitch. They're not going to start also giving water to everyone and then doing buttoning or maybe thread cutting and things like that. So job description must be accurate and complete, so that the positions are not misrepresented, and people do not have illusions or false hopes or some kind of misunderstanding that I was taken for this particular purpose, for this function, and I'm being asked to do something else. And so it's like you take a designer and then you ask the person to undertake to take care of merchandise, or you take a merchandiser and you ask them to start doing design. I mean, that is one of those classic examples of inaccurate job description. And second is developing accurate and appropriate job description. That is difficult and time consuming. And if you look at companies like Lifestyle or Levi's, etc., these companies have perfected the art of describing the jobs in an accurate and appropriate manner. So that gives clarity to everyone that who's supposed to do what. If there is something which has not been described in the job description of anyone, so if that thing has to be done, no one knows who's going to do. So anyone who's bossy is going to ask the other person to do it, and the person who's going to do it is going to do it grudgingly. That should not be the case. Let it be in the written format that who is supposed to do what, period. And there should not be any overlaps. I'm also supposed to do it, you are also supposed to do it. So why don't you do it? I'll not do it. Even though my job profile, carries that description that I'm supposed to do that. And then skill matrix, someone who's very thin, don't ask them to lift weights. Someone who has a bad eyesight, don't ask them to do fine things like cutting threads or doing that fine embroideries and things like that. Skill matrix. Someone who's very strong, ask them to do, someone who's young, ask them to do things in which a lot of energy is required. And someone who's very old and is very experienced, ask them to do things which are very fine, or where wisdom is required, or where maturity is required. So you do the skill matrix and compensation or the salary, etc. So the rules of for payments of the salary, how people would be paid. in terms of the number of pieces that you do. It's a rule that, number of pieces that you have not made correctly, you will have to repair for no extra cost. If you don't repair it, you will not be paid for it. Instead, you will be debited. So which means that if you are making 100 pieces, you made 90, 10 are wrong, you correct it. If you don't correct it, you will be debited. Not that you'll just not get the salary for those 10 pieces. The losses that will happen because of those 10 pieces will be debited to you. So simple as that. You have to give me 100 correct pieces, period. And that brings us to the next concept, which is productivity of direct labor. Now, direct labor is where a person is, let's say, stitching, or a person is washing. Indirect labor is, let's say, security guard. Regardless of the level of production, how do we attribute the service of the security guard? He did not produce anything directly. He is providing security. So he is an indirect labor. Direct labor is people who are washing, people who are stitching, people who are doing embroidery, or people who are doing buttoning, or people who are doing thread cutting or checking. So this is often used as key measurement of a firm's productivity. Now, there are two things. You can hire people on salary. You can hire operators on salary. It means whether they produce 99 pieces or 100 pieces or 101 pieces, they'll get their salaries. That is one. There is a piece rate system. That's the second type. Piece rate system is the number of pieces you produce, you will be paid according to every piece. That is piece rate. So that is again productivity of direct labor. Now this is often used as a key measurement of a firm's productivity. Now two dimensions which affect labor cost of a product is, the number of minutes or hours it takes to produce the product. That is one. And the second is productivity of labor. So if someone is salaried, you will see per hour how much are they making. If a person is on piece rate basis, you don't bother to see how much are they producing in 1 hour, because anyways they know that if they produce more, they will be paid more. Someone who is salaried, the person knows if they make 99 or if they make 101 pieces, they'll get the same salary. So why would they want to make 101 pieces? They'll just make 99 or maybe 98. Now, productivity of labor can be evaluated as units of output per labor hour. Per hour, how much have you produced? So productivity of labor can be evaluated as this, or the value of finished goods per hour. Now, the operation that you're doing, what is the value of that operation per hour? Accordingly, you may be paid. Now we know that you do your costing and you quote a price to the buyer. Now you've taken a costing of, let's say, 3 rupees for cutting, and let's say 50 paisa for attaching of the pocket. So if you take 50 paisa as the cost of attaching the pocket, you are taking 50 paisa from the client. Then in that case, if a person is making 100, if a person is attaching 100 pockets per hour, then the value of the work done is 100 into that 50 paisa, which is 50 rupees. So that person is generating 50 rupees worth of value for you. So accordingly, you will pay that person. Obviously, you will not pay 50 rupees. You will pay less than that. You will pay 30, 35, 40 rupees. So you are taking the value of the finished goods per hour. Productivity of labor can also be evaluated as units of production per labor rupee. Meaning to say that this is the case where you are paying salary to the labor. So in that case, you will see that for 1 day, if you are paying, let's say, 400 rupees to the labor. So for 8 hours, you are paying 400 rupees. So per hour, you are paying 50 rupees. Now, per hour, if a person is producing, let's say, attaching 50 pockets to attaching the pockets to the shirt, and you are paying 50 rupees per hour. So the person is producing 1 rupee worth of value for you per shirt, or 50 rupees of value per hour. Now, for 1 rupee that you have paid to the person, you are paying 400 rupees to the labor, which is 50 rupees per hour, 8-hour shift. So when you are paying 50 rupees per hour, then for every rupee that you spend, how much is the person producing? So if the person is attaching 50 pockets and you are paying 50 rupees per hour, so for 1 rupee, you are getting 1 pocket attached. So the productivity of labor can be evaluated as any of these 3 methods. They pretty much mean the same thing. And you can also compare two labor. 1 rupee spent on labor 1, how much are we getting? And 1 rupee spent on labor 2, how much are we getting? And then you can compare which labor is better for you, which one is more profitable. Any labor which is very less profitable, you remove that labor and hire another labor. Further, if you look at labor utilization, percentage of time operators actually produce when compared to the total time available. Now, 8-hour shift, you don't expect people to be working for 8 hours straight. Not possible. First thing, people come to the factory, sit on the machines. It will take at least 3 to 5 minutes. You stand on the production floor, You stand there 9 o'clock if the shift is supposed to start. Till 9:05, you will hear some of the machines operating, and by 9:05, you can hear the sounds of all the machines. So, which means first 5 minutes are gone. And obviously, when people come to the factory and we sit on the machine, they are going to talk to the person in the front and at the back. How was yesterday? Where did you go? I saw you with certain person. What were you doing? This, that, whatever. So first 5 minutes, they come, sit, warm up. Second 5 minutes, they've just started. By the 15th minute, probably they are going to start walking, at a certain speed. After 2 hours, they are slightly tired. The speed, slows a little. Lunchtime, 5 minutes remaining, they'll stop working. Well, it's already lunchtime. Anyone who comes to scold them, by the time they start scolding, it's lunchtime. And when it's lunchtime, you can't stop and scold them because they have to go, rush, immediately have their lunch and come back. After they come back from lunch again, first 5 minutes, they are like feeling a little lazy, just like you and me. And 5 minutes just before chutti time in the evening, they'll stop work. Stop work not just because they don't want to, because they are anticipating they are going to leave the factory because it is chutti time. And the last 5 minutes, they don't do any operation, they clean the machine. And they clean the machine and keep things in place and lock and things like that before leaving the machine. So you don't get, people are not going to work for 8 hours straight. So the percentage of time operators actually produce can be somewhere around, let's say, 90, 95%. It cannot be 100%. Further, in case of piece rate system, which we have already discussed that, you pay on the basis of number of pieces made, not on the basis of fixed salary. So in case of piece rate system, we have on standard and we have off standard. On standard means that the operator is producing as per the production standard for the operation that is assigned. On standard means you have to make 50 pieces every hour and the person is making 50 pieces. That is on standard. Off standard means the operator is compensated usually with an hourly wage, but is not producing a product. Now, this is the case where something goes wrong with the machine or whatever. You still have to pay that operator a certain amount of money. That's the hourly wage, even if the person is not producing a product because there's a machine breakdown or some other things. So that is your off standard. That's the case of off standard. If people are sitting and they cannot produce because of a problem in the factory or with the machine, you can't blame them for it. So in that case, you are paying them off standard. And off standard is because of reduced efficiency due to machine breakdown, because of power failures and things like that. Now, if you say that no, there's power failure or the machine is the problem and I'll not pay you the salary because you've not produced. They'll say we're sitting here. It's not our problem. We are not to be blamed. And you said no, no, we cannot pay you. Even if the machine is not working, when the machine is okay, please start producing, and we'll only pay you for the number of pieces that you produce. They will stop coming to your factory from the next day onwards because their time is very, very important. Because the amount of money that they are earning is very less. So you can't be if you do not pay them, then they won't leave your organization. They'll stop coming, and they'll also tell everyone that don't work in that organization. If there's something, if there's a problem of power failure or machine breakdown, they don't pay you. So that's how we have to pay. Even if the production is not happening. Okay, so going forward, we come to another concept, which is training and development, which is very hard to come by in the Indian scenario. Rarely do we spend much time and money on training and development of these operators or the people who are working in the organization. People don't know, or they don't want to train people because they feel that once they are trained, they will leave the organization, they will join some other organization. So that's a different matter of discussion altogether. So under training and development, there's an orientation program, which is when you join an organization, you go through an orientation program where you will be introduced to the way the company works, who is the production manager, who is the finishing manager, etc., who you will be reporting to, who will be reporting to you, and things like that. And how do you get the salary? On which date do you get the salary? How many earned leave and casual leaves, etc., etc. And the how the bonus will be given. All those things will be told to you in the orientation program. And then the training programs are where you are trained to do something new, something else. And then the job skills, the things that you're supposed to do. If your skills are at a certain level, you'll be trained so that you graduate from semi-skilled to skilled to highly skilled and things like that. And then cross training for multi-skill operations. So if you can do, let's say, log stitch, you will be trained to also do overlog, or you can be trained to do other operations, other machines and things like that. So that just in case someone is absent, you can act as a backup. So that is also done. There are live training where you will be sitting on the machine, or you will actually be driving a car if it is about automobiles. That is live training. And then we have vestibule training, which is rarely happens in the garment trade. Vestibule training is simulated, where not applicable to garment trade so much. But let's say you're talking about operating a space shuttle or driving a car. So you'll be sitting in a cabin with all the controls and everything, and it is simulated. The car you will feel like car is moving, and just in case, and there's a screen in front of you. You are driving just like playing a video game. So something like that. So all of these come under your, which is important. And now we will talk about inventory management. Now, what is inventory? Inventory is the amount of stock that you maintain. It can be finished goods, it can be semi-finished goods, it can be raw material. So, and what is important about inventory management is that we don't keep inventory a lot or very less. Now, inventory control and turnover. Now, this is inventory control is where you ensure that you don't keep a lot, neither do you keep, less than what is required. And inventory turnover is that how many times do you turn the inventory? As in, let's say you keep a stock of 10,000 meters of fabric at any given point of time. In 1 year's time, how many times that 10,000 meters of fabric is turned over? As in, you've kept 10,000 meters and you're consuming it, and after the point of time, you're left with, let's say, 2 or 3,000 meters, you have the next 10,000 coming in. So how many times do you turn it over? Now, inventory management is an effort to maintain stock levels and costs within acceptable limits. Imagine you buy a lot of inventory. You keep a lot of raw material in your factory. Who's going to pay for that? If you paid for that, then you are obviously running short of cash because you have logged your capital in buying a lot of inventory. So buying a lot of inventory is never advisable, but in case the inventory is less, production is happening, and suddenly you find that the raw material is finished. Now what do you do? Suddenly the raw material is not going to appear. So you cannot afford to have shortage on inventory. So it has to be controlled. So inventory levels must be high enough to maintain a steady workflow, and it should be low enough that your investment in the inventory is kept at a minimum, and therefore you'll be able to provide good customer service. Let's say I am running a restaurant, so I keep, let's say, 20 or 30 bottles of Bisleri. Now, if I just keep one bottle of Bisleri, and there is one family which is coming, and they demand for four of them. How do I give them four of them? I just have one bottle. So at any given point of time, I'll keep at least 20, 30. But I'm not going to keep 1,000 bottles because I know that in my restaurant on any given day, there's just about 100 people coming in. So I won't be requiring more than 100 bottles a day. So likewise, fairly further in inventory management now. Inventory is a controllable element that has a major impact on productivity. You can control it, and it has an impact on the productivity. You will run short of cash if you keep a lot of inventory, and if you keep less, that's going to cause havoc because the entire production will come to a halt if the inventory level is not maintained. And inventory management is the key to the success of the firm. It restricts cash flow because ज़्यादा inventory रखते हैं तो, and it does not add value to the product. Just because you are keeping a lot of stock does not sorry does not add any value to the product. A lot of inventory. Now, inventory turns and productivity can be improved through better forecasting. So if I run a factory, I know how much of fabric has to be kept on a daily basis, how much of production is happening, and therefore how much buffer I have to maintain. I have to maintain a buffer of 10 or 15 days or a month's buffer, or maybe 10 days buffer. I can calculate. I can do forecasting accordingly. And I can also do the production scheduling more accurately. If I just look at the numbers for the last month, last year, how much did we produce and how much of inventory did we have to maintain and things like that. Fairly simple. And it also helps in controlling the work in progress. The work in progress, like we had discussed earlier, was the number of pieces which are there on the machines, in the buttoning section, in the washing department, in the ironing section, in the packing section. All of that is a work in progress. So if your inventory management is good, you will be able to control the work in progress. In case the inventory is not managed well, if there is short inventory, then the work in progress is going to get impacted because suddenly in between you will fall short of raw material. So we've talked about so many things, and we talked about, so all the things that we've talked about is fairly commercial, and everything is towards giving great service to the customers and maintaining our margins or maybe increase it and things like that. At the end of it, there is something called waste management. Waste management is something which is very crucial today, especially when we talk about sustainability and other issues. Now, production waste is costly and controlling it is a social responsibility. Now, production waste, imagine we have paid a certain amount of money to buy the fabric. Now, when the fabric is cut, all those leftovers, and we still paid a huge amount of money to buy the fabric. Now, when you have the fabric waste in front of you, what do you do with it? Now, production waste is costly, and controlling it is a social responsibility. We can't be wasting because the amount of resources that is available on Earth is limited, and therefore we have to keep the waste as less as possible. Now, that is part of waste management. Now, cutting of the fabric, it generates a lot of waste, and disposing them becomes more expensive. Dyeing and washing needs a lot of water. So once we have done our dyeing, then we have to remove the extra dye. That also requires a lot of water. So what are we doing with the water? We are using a lot of water. But after that, what are we doing? We're just throwing it away. Okay, so now we come to the last concept for this session. And that concept is about equipment management and plant modernization. Now, when we buy a machine, a new machine, there's a lot of emotion involved with that. And after 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, when the machine, develops certain problems, you get it repaired. But after some days, again it starts malfunctioning. There's some other problem. But it's still working. Now the mentality that we have grown up with is that if it is working, why sell it? Why replace it? Now the problem is that when it develops problems in between and it cannot run in full speed, and every now and then the operator complains that there's some problem with the machine, it has to be replaced. We don't replace it because there's an emotion attached to it, and then if we sell it off, we feel that we have lost. We bought it for 30,000 rupees, now we are selling it for 5,000 rupees. I lost 25,000 rupees. This is how we feel. We do not calculate how much money did we make because of that machine. The only thing that we remember is we bought it for 30,000 and now, someone is offering only 2,000 rupees for the machine. How can we sell it for 2,000 rupees? We also don't calculate that if we buy a new machine, how much extra money will we make because of the new machine. So that Indian mentality of keeping all those old things, not disposing anything of, plays a very debilitating role in the factories also. Now, it is known fact that we should replace the worn out equipment. Another concept, replacement of existing equipment to increase productivity and reduce costs. You are using the existing equipment, and because of that, your productivity is low and the cost is high, and we don't want to sell it. We are not taking into account the increased productivity and reduced cost because of the new machines. Now, acquisition of new equipment to expand production capacity and to improve quality is what we forget, and acquisition of new equipment to produce new product line. If you have new equipment which may have a lot more new features added to it, you may be able to produce new products. It can be attached gathers or ruffles or drawstrings, or have t-shirts in which certain parts are knitted, and you could attach woven parts to it. There are so many myriads, millions of possibilities. So when you acquire new equipments, you could produce new product lines, in addition to the existing product lines. And acquisition of new equipment to improve safety and environmental factors. You're driving a car and it's like old and rickety, and the mileage has gone down. It produces a lot of fumes and smoke and other things. But still, you don't want to sell it. You're not looking at all the pollution that is happening, and the kind of problem that you're facing every now and then, getting it repaired and things like that. Now, when you buy a new car, it's going to be safer because it's much better. The standards are much better, and it is good because it does not produce that much pollution. So when you keep that in mind, only then we would understand why it is important to acquire a new equipment. So with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you.